Also, another phenomenal weekend of college football. By the way, this coming weekend is another phenomenal weekend of college football. I get the NFL rules, but there's been some spots last year and some spots again this year where you sit there after the weekend and go, yeah, college football was better this weekend than the NFL, and I think that's exactly how I feel after this weekend as well. We'll start with the number one team in the country, the Ohio State Buckeyes, 34-16 against Illinois. I mean, the fact that they're able – look, Illinois is not very good, but they're a top 20 team according to the AP poll at home. And the fact that Ohio State was able to go in there and really not do anything special and just kind of play and still cover the spread and beat them 34-16 shows you how good they are as a football team. The defense, they were flying around making plays as they always do, TFLs, turnovers, doing a tremendous job. But saying he was good in the game, but threw for less than 200 yards. Jeremiah Smith, he didn't pop off. They ran the ball good enough, but nothing crazy, right? And 34-16, never in doubt, start to finish, absolutely dominated the game. And if you can play average football to the standard of Ohio State, which they did, and still smack a top 20 team on the road, it's incredible what Ohio State has been able to do to this point. And, we'll talk about Oregon in a second, but I kind of viewed Oregon as that team that was right there, not quite at Ohio State's level, but right there. Ohio State has really separated themselves from the pack here. Clearly the best team in the country, and doesn't seem like, as we've mentioned a lot on the show, they're going to get challenged at all before the Michigan game, but we'll see. Alabama, another huge win, 24-17 on the road against 14 Missouri. Kalen DeBoer just continues to navigate this gauntlet of a schedule. On the road to a top 10 team in Georgia, W. At home against a team in Vanderbilt, that's a top 16 team that beat you last year, W. On the road against a top 15 team in Missouri at a noon slot when you got the third Saturday in October, the Tennessee game the following week. Another victory for Kalen DeBoer. Those guys are playing tough physical ball, which after the first week against Florida State makes you scratch your head and wonder how the heck that is possible. But they are. The offensive line playing with a tenacity about them, and they have the best quarterback in the country in Ty Simpson. Believe he is now the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy, as he should be. The best passing attack in America resides in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. They win that game 27-24. Defensively, they still gave up some big runs. Ahmad Hardy is tremendous, and he certainly did some good things there. Purbulla, obviously, the running quarterback there for Mizzou, that caused some issues for Alabama in the game, no doubt. But I believe they were in a spot there with 5 minutes to go, and it was a 4th and 8 opportunity. Hanging around midfield, and Kalen DeBoer said, we are leaving the offense out there. We're living and dying by our best players. Ty Simpson finds the true freshman, Latsier Brooks, as he introduces himself to the country there on that play. Just a dime was great coverage by Mizzou, but a dime and an even better catch there from the freshman Lottie Brooks. He led the team in receiving in this game. By the way, Alabama did all that, and Ryan Williams didn't have a singular catch in the ball game. If Lottie Brooks kind of introduces himself into this wide receiver room, look out, because you got Jeremy Bernard and you got the Isaiah Horton, obviously the Miami transfer, Ryan Williams, who's still incredible despite not having any catches. If Lottie Brooks can come in there as a true freshman and be unbelievable, look out. He wears that number 17. He looks a little bit like Jalen Waddle when he's out there running around too. And he was tremendous in the football game. Another huge win for Alabama. The road continues to get difficult. Third Saturday in October. Next week, Tennessee coming to town. Huge game. And then obviously still have to play LSU and Oklahoma and Auburn, of course. Lots of difficult games on the horizon for Alabama, but Kalen DeBoer deserves a ton of credit. This is a state and a fan base and a collective game of college football that was going for his head after the Florida State game, and he has responded beautifully. He has handled it perfectly, and Alabama is now clearly one of the best teams in the country. Major props to Kalen DeBoer. Texas, Arch Manning. Hey, how are you? He goes in Red River, and they beat Oklahoma 23-6. Was he perfect in the game? No, but he didn't make many mistakes, and he was completing his passes at a very, very efficient rate. Only a handful of incompletions in the game for Arch. They scored on special teams. That obviously helped. Mateer was shaky in the game, right? Did he rush back for it? Was he 100%? All those things, all those questions are, I acknowledge them, and they're worth asking, to be completely honest with you. Had the hand surgery, I believe, only a few weeks prior to the game. Threw 3 interceptions. he wasn't very good. Arch clearly the better quarterback. But, Texas, I think these are, the second best and third best defense in the country. I think in a lot of ways they showed that in this game. But Arch, he made all the right plays there, and that's obviously his biggest win as the quarterback at Texas. And now you're like, okay, what do we have here in the Longhorns? Can they perhaps go on a run? Obviously, they need to run the table in order to get in. I don't know if they can do that. They have some very difficult games here. But these next two that they have against Kentucky and against Mississippi State, could argue two of the worst teams in the SEC. If they continue to, build off this and look good in these games and not just barely skate by, maybe you're in a spot where you sit there at the end of the year, they're playing Texas A&M, and you're like, if you win this game, you might be in the college football playoff. Don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here, but based on that defense, I think it's, reasonable to have those kinds of conversations, to be completely honest with you, because that defense is so good. And if Arch can do what he did in this game, not make mistakes, deliver on third down in big moments, protect the football, they can be in a spot where they can make some noise here. Don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. They were obviously unranked. They are back to being ranked after a big-time win against Oklahoma. Here's the upset of the day, right? Indiana goes into Autzen Stadium, a place in which the Ducks simply do not lose, and win that football game 30-20. Could make the argument it was not even that close, to be honest with you. They dictated every aspect of that football game. Mendoza threw it well enough. They ran the football. They were more tough. They were more physical. They were able to turn over the Oregon team. They looked more prepared. The environment did not faze them whatsoever. They had the better head coach in the game. Cignetti was incredible. I'm a big Dan Lanning guy, but he got out-coached in the game. When we talked about the two receivers on the outside there for Indiana, specifically Elijah Sarratt, he is a complete dog, and he showed that again in the game. Mendoza getting him the football, and Indiana's real. We said on the show last week that there's last year it was it's cute, it's Indiana, they're winning all these games. No, this is a team. This is a real team now, and obviously they're gonna have to continue to prove it and not get too big of a head here as they progress forward. But Cignetti, boy, he had those guys ready to go, and they win that football game. Huge win at Oregon. They've got some difficult games on their schedule coming up, but Indiana, I was higher than the AP poll on them going into this game. Had them at 5 on mine, and they're certainly going to get a little bit higher than that after a huge win at Oregon. Unbelievable from some Cignetti and the Hoosiers. Georgia beats Auburn 20-10. Auburn's a bit of a mess. They can't do anything offensively. Jackson Arnold certainly struggling. But Jordan-Hare, one of the toughest places to play in the country. Kirby Smart goes in there. They play well enough. They get the victory, and that kind of sets up next week perfectly. Because if you're a fan, you're sitting there like, hopefully Georgia can get by Auburn, and hopefully Ole Miss can get by Washington State so we can set up that banger of a game this coming week. They both win. Certainly not impressive performances from Georgia and Ole Miss in these games, but 2 victories, and we should see a phenomenal game, Georgia and Ole Miss in Athens, I believe, and that's coming up this week. That should be incredible college football. USC beats Michigan 31-13. The only thing we missed in our best bets of the weekend, I didn't think that USC would be able to match them from a physicality standpoint, but they certainly did in the game. They ran the football really well. Their starter, by the way, got hurt. He's going to be gone for several weeks, which is a problem for USC. But Maava was good in the game. Lincoln Riley had those boys ready to go. Again, they matched the physicality of Michigan in the game, which was great to see. And, USC, they lost the game on the road to Illinois. It was a close game, didn't get blown out. Now they're in a spot where they have this matchup here against Notre Dame, and we got that this week. And that should be a phenomenal game between the Fighting Irish and the Trojans. And, that's the biggest win of Lincoln Riley's career as the coach of SC. And, they got to understand that it's a great win, but they got to build off it because they got to beat Notre Dame again coming up this week. That will be a tremendous college football game. When USC, Notre Dame, when those two teams are good and they're playing each other, it doesn't get a whole lot better than that in college football. But Bryce Underwood, he looked like a freshman a little bit in the game. We talked about how these environments, they haven't been too big for him, and I don't know if that was the case here in the Coliseum in this game, but I don't think they expected to run the ball as poorly as they did. I thought, Marshall and Haynes would be able to run it better. Credit to USC, they got this lead, and we talk about it with the Bengals all the time. It's like, yeah, you can sit here and try to run the football, but when you find yourself behind 2 scores, it gets increasingly harder to do that, and that was the issue that Michigan found themselves in, and they lose for the second time this year, 31-13. And then Northwestern beats Penn State 22-21. James Franklin gets fired, which we'll spend time later in the week kind of fully discussing that a little bit more, and we'll go over some potential replacements for him at Penn State. But crazy game, college football, right? A couple of weeks ago, it's college game day. It's the whiteout. He's playing Oregon. It's this top 5 matchup at home. The place is sold out. They're going crazy. It's an overtime game that they have an opportunity to win. They lose, and then they lose 2 more games after that, and he gets fired. Crazy. That happened a couple of weeks ago, and his world got flipped upside down. It sucks that, this happens to people, and then you sit there and you go, oh, his buyout's what? Oh, you said $50+ million is his buyout. Oh, he'll be okay. He'll be just fine. And that's kind of, the situation we find ourselves in here with James Franklin. He won a lot of games, but he didn't win at the level in which they should have. And Penn State, they take their football very seriously. They allocate a lot of resources to it. They're trying to be like Ohio State. They're in the Big Ten, and candidly, it's just not even close here at this point. I think a change needed to be made. Is it aggressive doing it in the middle of the year? Yeah, but they wanted to send a message that this is not, the expectation for our football team. Northwestern is not a good team, and Drew Aller got hurt. He's going to be out the rest of the year, so it stinks for him, right? He came back. He was a guy that probably would have gotten drafted in the first round last year. I'm not a Drew Aller guy. I wouldn't have, but I think somebody in the NFL maybe would have taken him in the first round. Definitely at least in the second round had he come out. He didn't. He wanted to come back, try to right some of those wrongs in the playoffs last year and lead his team to a championship. And he gets hurt, and it completely blows up in his face. And those are sometimes kind of the decisions that you have to weigh, right? Because, people are in these spots where it's like, oh, why didn't you just come back for another year of college? Like, the draft will be there next year. And Aller comes back. He gets hurt, loses his head coach. He's not going to go to the draft now. He's got to come back for another year here at this point. Is he going to transfer? Probably. So that whole thing kind of blew up in his face there. But another loss there for Penn State. By the way, UCLA won again. They beat the crud out of Michigan State, which they're arguably the most fun story in college football right now. New Heiser, what they're doing. Nico's playing good football at quarterback now. So we'll see if UCLA continues to win football games. But Penn State loses. They fire their coach. Jim Knowles, by the way, leaves Ohio State for Penn State. How's that working out for you? Oh, yeah, not very well, huh? So, tough situation there for Penn State, and we'll see what they do here going forward, but complete disaster for them.